In one of my videos, I spoke about politicians not being real leaders in a true sense of the word. Well, it seems like these politicians have once again proved me right. Coming up. Integrity is making sure that the things you say and the things you do are in alignment. Your manifestos, your policies, your principles, your values, your ethical values must be in alignment with what you do as a leader. But not so with politicians. It seems like you cannot talk about integrity and politicians in the same sentence. Check this out.
What about the DA and the ANC?
No, we don't want to be in government with the ANC, and that's precisely...
So that is out of the question?
No, it's precisely why we formed the multi-party charter. My job is to get the ANC out of government. I don't think we're going to solve the country's problems by having the same people who are responsible for the economic crisis, the social crisis, and the infrastructure crisis sitting around the table. We've got to change them, and that's why the multi-party charter has said we will not do deals with the ANC or the EFF.
What if we see a scenario where the ANC still is somewhat in the majority? Is the DA going to rule out working
We will
with the
go
PLO?
back to the multi-party charter, and we will decide on what the best option for it. It may be a minority. Maybe we could form a minority government.
Let me make a prediction. Because the ANC doesn't know what it stands for anymore, because it can't revert to principles, because it hasn't got any, believe me, in my lifetime, I will see that party die too.
We all know that DA hate ANC. They hate them with passion. DA has always been saying that they will never work with the ANC because ANC is corrupt, criminals, calling their president corrupt, Cyril Ramaphosa that is. They even challenged Cyril Ramaphosa on the Phala issue. You'll remember that. But all of a sudden, the very same DA now is in bed with the ANC. What happened? What happened to those policies and those values that DA stood for? You remember they said they will never ever work with the criminals, with the corrupt government of the ANC. They will never be in coalition, or they will never be in any kind of coalition with the ANC. But the very same DA now is in bed with the very same ANC they hate. You know, South Africans, if you think that you'll ever get anything from politicians, or maybe politicians are for your interest, I think you need to think again. Any country needs a proper leaders with integrity and leaders who care for people, but not politicians. Check this out.
DA leader John Steenhuisen has announced further action that will be taken. This includes writing to the police commissioner to get further details on the VIP protection unit, as well as writing to the FBI to investigate these allegations of money laundering. But not to waste any time, let's go straight to DA leader Mr. Steenhuisen to give us further details on this. Mr. Steenhuisen, thank you so much for your time. You've announced several steps regarding receiving that accountability. This this, it seems that the principle right now is the transparency that you require from President Cyril Ramaphosa regarding this action. Just talk to us a little bit more about the FBI and why you've chosen to involve them. We know there is already a criminal case regarding this matter, and you've said that you don't have much faith in that process. Why have you gone straight to the FBI to investigate these allegations of money laundering?
Yeah. Well, thanks very much. The FBI step is one of 9 steps that we've announced today, some of them parliamentary, others involving outside agencies, the FBI being one of them. Because it is alleged that dollars were involved, it's very clear that this is a currency of the United States of America, and the FBI are tasked with investigating white-collar corruption and money laundering involving the use of US dollars, particularly where these cross borders. I think it's very important that we understand where these dollars have come from, which borders they've crossed, and how they ended up in South Africa. And we believe that they would be better placed to be able to answer that question in the absence of clarity from President Ramaphosa.
Steenhuisen, you have compared this saga to Nkandla. One would possibly draw the conclusion that it would have required more action from the DA. We've seen you take extensive action against, for example, last week or a few weeks ago, you took the ANC to court over this catered deployment policy. So we know the capacity is there for the DA to take actions a bit further. Would it be a fair assessment if one were to conclude that the DA is extending a lot of grace to President Ramaphosa in this regard?
No, not at all, because if you recall the beginning of the Nkandla scandal, we used parliamentary action steps to try and hold the president accountable. The infamous answer about the so-called bond that he had on the property, calling for a parliamentary inquiry, giving the president tough parliamentary questions in Parliament. And so we're doing that as well. I think that the president needs to come out and give his side of the story, because this is becoming his Nkandla, and it's going to be a big ugly stain on his presidency if he doesn't come and take the nation into his confidence about where the money came from, why he was in possession of it, why are we having an investigation now when this thing happened 2 years ago. Was the VIP protection unit used to go and pursue the private business interests of the president? Was the president, had he declared this business and money in terms of the register? These are all things that we had used the same mechanisms with Mr. Zuma. Should the president choose to stonewall, should the president continue with the silence, well, we will then do exactly what we did to Mr. Zuma and make sure that every opportunity we get that we will raise this issue and that we will start to use courts and other mechanisms to do so.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to give the listeners an opportunity to ask some questions. I've got a question now from, who's this now? It says, good morning, Clement. And may you please pose for me these questions to Helen Ziller. The first one is, will the DA support the impeachment of President Cyril Ramaphosa on the Phala matter if this issue is resuscitated in Parliament?
Well, we will only support the impeachment if the evidence suggests that there should be an impeachment, but I don't think we are now in a position, given the fact that we have signed a statement of intent, to start impeaching a president we've just voted for. Mm-hmm. That was the agreement we've made. We haven't said in future that we will never, ever do anything, but we will not support a motion of no confidence in the president, because that was part of the agreement. Mm-hmm. We said we will not support a motion of no confidence in him, and that is definitely part of the agreement. But if any evidence emerges of criminal wrongdoing or something like that, we would have to take a look at the issues and deal with them inside the government of national unity, no question. Yeah. We cannot be held hostage, but we have voted for Cyril Ramaphosa, and we've agreed that we won't make the government unstable by voting votes of no confidence in each other all the time.
Yeah.
Not so long ago, you will remember how DA made sure that Cyril accounts for the Phala issue and the money that was found in the sofas. They even took it a step further and involved the FBI to make sure that FBI investigate the Phala issue. And all of a sudden, so early on this GNU government, so early, already DA is compromising on the issue of corruption. Now, My concern is, do you think that DA will be able to hold the ANC accountable going forward? Or maybe on any corruption that might happen in the future? I don't think so.
Was Phala discussed in negotiations with the ANC?
No, not at all. I mean, we started from a position of what are the values and principles that are bringing us together, entrenching and protecting the Constitution. And if anyone watched that interview on Sunday night, they can see why it was so important that the Constitutionalists stood together against those who would seek to throw out or trash the Constitution, dilute the rule of law, remove private property ownership in the country. It's absolutely essential that the centre holds now. And the voters have spoken, and that's the point I made a bit earlier to you. I'm sure that the ANC would like to have emerged from this election with their own majority. We would have liked an MPC majority, but that's not what the voters chose. They chose the cards that they've dealt us, and we must now play those as best as we can for the country. I think we have put our party T-shirts away for now. South African flag on the front, party logo on the back. It's time to rescue our country.
Politicians don't have people's best interest at heart. It's always about power and money. So that's why they always change their mind and flip-flopping, sacrificing their principles, values, convictions at the altar of compromise, because they are not there for the people in the first place. It's all about power and money. Let me hear your comment below, and please let's grow this channel. Don't forget to subscribe